Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. We're going to go through another FRQ for AP Human Geography, another Unit 1 FRQ. We're going to look at regions and time-space compression and geographic data, as well as distance decay. And so, yeah, we're covering a lot of stuff here. We have a map, which is a stimulus. A stimulus is a piece of data. It could be a map, a picture, a chart, a graph, something like that. So this mimics FRQ number 2 on your AP exam. You have 3 FRQs. Each of them have 7 parts like this one. They'll go from part A to part G. And so they're going to be 7 points. And FRQ number 2 has a stimulus. FRQ number 3 has 2 stimuli. And FRQ number 1 has no stimuli. You just get the questions. So, yeah, I do want to spend a second to look at the FRQ here. We have 7 different prompts. And it may seem like a rush to get through 7 of these in 25 minutes, especially when you're writing in pen and you don't have an eraser. So, just something for you to know, walking knowledge, is how many identifies will you have? How many explains will you have? So on one FRQ, a 7-part FRQ, you're going to see 4 to 5 explains. This one only has 3 because I wanted to put in more of the different task verbs for you to practice. But for the most part, your FRQs on the AP exam will have 4 to 5. I would say 5 is a good number. And then the other 2 could be describes. One of them will at least be a describe, and then the other one will be an identify, a compare, or a define. Those are supposed to be the more simple responses that are going to take the least amount of time here. And those explains are going to what gets you a 3, a 4, or a 5. So those are pretty important to focus on. But the other ones you should do. And a lot of times students do those first because they're easier and they kind of give you an idea of what they're talking about. So yeah, if you haven't done this FRQ yet, you can. I would recommend spending 25 minutes doing this FRQ in pen on a piece of paper and trying it out, seeing what you can get, and then coming back and going through the rubric. But if you just like to go through the rubric with us, that's okay. So let's start out with part A. So part A, identify the type of region shown on the map. So this is a functional region. So a functional region is a region that's connected to a node, which is a function. So the pizza restaurant is the node. It is the function. And then it's linked to where a driver can deliver to from that restaurant. So that's what makes this a functional region. Let's say this is a Papa John's restaurant here. The functional region for Papa John's in this city is going to be different than a Papa John's in Charleston, South Carolina, or Houston, Texas, or anywhere in Illinois, or anywhere else. Each functional region is going to be just a little bit different because it's going to have a different geography, a different city, different population that it's going to be in. So it's not a formal region, and it's not a perceptual region because it's not up to interpretation. This is not a mental map. This is a map created by the restaurant to show where it will deliver to. That's not up to perception. So it's a functional region here. Okay, so the next one, describe one contribution that has led to time-space compression. So remember, time-space compression is that feeling that the world is getting smaller because of advancements in communication and transportation technologies. You can communicate to people quicker, and you can travel to places quicker and more efficiently. So here's some sample responses. These aren't exhaustive. That means that these aren't the only responses, but these are probably the most common ones that I would expect to see if this was on the AP exam. So the first one, the invention of the internet has significantly reduced communication time across long distances. Great. You described how it contributes to time-space compression. It's not asking you how is the internet made up. How does the internet work? Because obviously you may not know exactly how the internet really works. And that's okay. It's asking how it relates to time-space compression. You don't have to go on and give a thesis here, 20,000 pages worth of information. This is fine. This will do it. Another one, aviation. You said air travel has greatly decreased travel time between continents. You could say between places or just between countries. The development of high-speed rail networks, or you could say subways, or even buses, has shortened travel times within cities and within and between countries. The widespread use of smartphones, or you could have just said iPhones, or Smart devices allows instant access to information and communication worldwide. The trend we're seeing here is that we're looking at contributions of time-space compression. We're looking at predominantly communication and transportation technologies because those have the biggest impact on time-space compression. There's some other things, though. We'll look at those, like container shipping. That kind of does have to do with transportation, though. The containers themselves are important because they allow for the global transport of goods and commuting a lot of goods at once, and it reduces time for international trade, and this facilitates trade internationally at a greater extent. So countries are going to be communicating with each other more because they can transport goods quicker. And then GPS technology. We see advancements in GPS technology like Google Maps that have enhanced navigation efficiency and reduced travel times. The expansion of teleconferencing and video technology like Zoom allows for real-time meetings across different time zones. I can go on a Zoom call with someone in California even though I'm not in California. I'm not in the PST time zone. So I do want to say something like this. You don't have to say what's word for word. You don't have to say the expansion of teleconferencing and video calling technology. You can rephrase that. You can just describe the technology if you would like to. You could just say being able to call people, phone calls. That's fine. This is supposed to be a more broad-based answer to cover a lot of what students could say. You don't have to say that it allows for meetings across time zones. You could say that, or you could say it's reduced communication time across long distances, or allows for communication across longer distances, which hasn't been achievable except for very recently. This is still so new in the time of the world. And then this last one. The establishment of international trade agreements has facilitated faster economic exchanges between countries. One thing I will point out is you said within countries when talking about anything international. That probably isn't going to get you any points because you have to talk about between countries. That's what international means. It means multiple countries. If you're talking about within countries, that's going to be inside one country. That doesn't mean international. That means domestic. So be careful with your wording on these FRQs. All right, here's part C. Explain how pizza delivery systems reflect the concept of time-space compression here. So we're just applying it to the concept in the FRQ. And you will do this on the AP exam, probably on every FRQ to some extent. So this is something you got to get a little good at. So yeah. Well, the first one. The pizza delivery systems exemplify, you can say show or demonstrate. I just wanted to be fancy and use exemplify. They exemplify time-space compression by significantly reducing the time required to receive food from distant locations, making it feel closer and more accessible. So you say not only how does it actually show time-space compression, but then you have to say why it shows time-space compression. So it reduces time to receive food, and it makes it feel closer and more accessible. Or you could say it is more accessible, because not only does it feel more accessible, but it literally is more accessible. That's why it feels accessible. Here's another one. The efficiency of modern pizza delivery systems illustrates time-space compression by leveraging, utilizing technology and transportation advancements, technologies to shrink perceived distances between pizzerias and customers. It shrinks relative distance. So you could have said that as well. Another one, the last one. Time-space compression is reflected in pizza delivery as the integration of GPS, or you could have just said some type of technology, positioning technology, or satellite imagery, or you could have said online ordering, fast transportation. You don't have to say all three of these things, but they allow for pizzas to be delivered rapidly over greater distances than ever before. So these are all examples of how pizza delivery systems today reflect time-space compression. They make them feel closer and more accessible. They allow for pizzas to be delivered over longer distances, and it makes pizza delivery places feel closer to the customer. Now, notice here for the explains that these responses are a little longer than the describes here. These explains are a little longer because you have to give an explanation. You have to give the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, notice that, yes, all three of these are one sentence long. Please don't make your explains one sentence long on the AP exam. Try to make them at least three. I would aim for 3 to 5. That way, you are very confident that you have what's on the rubric. How grading works for AP exams is that the graders, multiple graders, will read your responses, and they have a rubric like this one that they have to go through. And if you do not have what's on one of these bullet points, you don't get the point. And that's why you want to maximize your writing, so that way you put in as much information as possible. Don't ramble on about random stuff. Don't give a bunch of examples, because examples don't help you earn points unless you describe the examples and how they relate to the concept. So examples, I would save examples for when you're really struggling or you're really going at it, and you want to make sure you're getting that point. And then I think that's all I had to say about that. So yeah, part D. Describe the process of collecting geographic data via national census. So we're moving on a little bit from just time-space compression to how the census works and the power of geographic data. So it says here, describe the process of collecting the data. It's not asking what the census is, it's asking how the data is collected. So that's very important. So the national census collects geographic data through door-to-door surveying of each household. And then you could have said providing detailed demographic and housing information. It's not asking what the census collects, it's asking how. So you have to say that it's collected through door-to-door surveying or something like that. You could have said geographic data is collected in a national census by residents completing surveys online, by mail, or by phone. This is something the United States did with the 2020 census. It was the first census that they've done where they didn't do door-to-door surveying of the household. And then you could have just said something a little more, not concise, but inclusive of both of these first two responses. The process of collecting data through a national census involves collection through every household, which is important. You need to say the households, or every resident, or just residents, something like that, through various methods like online surveying, mailed forms, or in-person visits. You could have said, this is just a sample, something I would have written, is that the national census is collected through surveying each household in a country, through door-to-door methods, or through the internet, or by mail, or something like that. So it's not exactly like any of these, but it still gets the point, because it includes what's in these bullet points. And you only need what's in one of the bullet points, because typically on the rubric, they might have 15 different sample answers you could have that are entirely different from one another. You don't need all 15, you just need one. All right, part E, compare. When you see compare, think similarities, but also think differences. It may be hard to think of similarities for certain concepts. So when they put compare, they want you to put differences if there are differences. Now, don't put both similarities and differences. Just pick one and move on. This isn't supposed to be a long explain prompt. They just want you to say something that's similar or something that's different here. So in our prompt, we have to compare how local governments and pizza delivery restaurants may utilize the national census for various purposes. This, to me, is a contrast prompt. So let's look at some examples. Local governments use national census data to allocate resources and plan services like schools and hospitals, while pizza delivery restaurants use the data to identify target markets and optimize delivery routes. So yeah, schools and delivery routes are very different, but it's still a comparison. It shows that they're going to use the census differently, all right? Now, you don't have to say plan services like schools and hospitals. You could have just said schools. You'd have to say identify target markets and optimize delivery routes. You could have just said one or the other. So yeah. National census data helps local governments in redistricting and representation, whereas pizza delivery restaurants use the data to draw trends regarding their customers or customize marketing strategies to reach target markets. Local governments rely on the census to develop public infrastructure projects, but pizza delivery restaurants can use it to assess potential demand in markets and build or place new locations. So it's kind of similar, kind of different. They use it to build physical infrastructure. Local governments use census data to ensure equitable distribution of public funds, contrasting with pizza delivery restaurants who utilize the census to identify target markets that could maximize profit. So essentially what all you had to do here was give one reason local governments use the census and one reason pizza delivery restaurants can use the census. All right, here's another one. I put the map back because it might be a little important. Explain one way that population distribution influences the location of pizza delivery routes. So without even thinking about what you've learned in AP Human Geography, just think about common sense. Are pizza delivery restaurants going to be located in areas where there's a lot of people or there's not a lot of people? They're going to be located in places where there's people because that means there's customers and they can make money. The whole point of a business is to make money. So here's a sample answer. Population distribution influences pizza delivery routes by concentrating them in densely populated areas to maximize efficiency and reach more customers. And you could have said reach more customers in a shorter amount of time because we are talking about delivery systems. In sparsely populated regions or not dense populated regions or low density, pizza delivery routes are often longer and less frequent due to lower demand. So you could have said longer, you could have said less frequent, one or the other, or you could have said do not exist. Another one, pizza delivery routes are planned to prioritize neighborhoods with higher population densities. Or you could have said pizza delivery routes are located in areas with high population densities to maximize demand or to reach customers or to reach them in any efficient manner. Pizza delivery routes are less frequent in rural areas. This is probably what I would have said. Or you could say more frequent in suburban/urban areas since traveling costs are greater. Or you could say there are less customers. And then there are less customers, so there's less profit. It's all about profit. That's how businesses work. All right, our last explain. We're talking about distance decay. So I threw back the graph of distance decay here. It's an exponential decreasing curve. So the further away you get, the less interaction you have and the less likely you are to travel there. So how does that impact pizza delivery routes? Well, the further you away are from a pizzeria, the less likely you are to get delivery from there. So yeah, now here's the big word explanation. The frequency and reliability of deliveries decrease as the distance from the pizzeria increases. Yeah. Customers further away from the pizzeria experience longer wait times and potentially higher delivery fees compared to those nearby. Customers further away from the pizza restaurant are less likely to get delivery from that location. That's probably the most frequent one that I think students would write. That's what I would have written, is that they're less likely to get delivery from that location, or they're less likely to order from that location. So what are our takeaways from this FRQ? Well, it's a 7-part FRQ, like all of them on your AP exam. There are no half points or any kind of partial credit. You either get the point on a part or not. So for this part here, you either got 1 point or you got 0 points. On the AP exam, there's not going to be an FRQ with a Unit 1 focus. So this FRQ and the FRQ on Jordan's population, if you did that one, those are FRQs with a Unit 1 focus. On your AP exam, you're not going to have those. There's typically only going to be 1 or 2 parts on your FRQs that have a Unit 1 question, like scale of analysis or patterns of population or any kind of patterns at all. That's something they really like to ask is patterns. For some reason. I don't know. But they're not going to have a Unit 1 focus. Every other unit has a focus, but not Unit 1. FRQs on your AP exam are important because they're 50% of your score. So each part on an FRQ, so there's 21 in total, 7 times 3, is worth roughly 3 multiple choice questions. So you don't want to blow off the FRQ section. Regarding the task verbs, identifies are your least wordy. You can answer all of those in one sentence, if any show up on your AP exam at all. Describes are moderate. You should write a little more than your identifies, but not as much as your explains. Your explains, you need to go full blast with these and write as much as possible, but still answer the questions, still be relevant, and still have time to answer all of your other responses. You have 25 minutes to do each FRQ. When doing compares, they don't have to be just similarities, but they can also be differences. Regarding our concepts, time-space compression is created by innovations in communication and transportation technologies. They make the world feel smaller and make other places that are further away seem more accessible. Distance decay means that the further away you are, the less interaction you have. Sometimes the answers are just common sense, like pizza delivery routes are located where customers are located. If you don't know the answer initially to a part, like let's say you open the FRQ and you don't know part A, but you know part B, do part B first. Just label your part on your exam booklet and say part B, and then come back and do part A later. Don't waste your time trying to think of an answer here. Do the parts that you know first. And yeah, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, or DM me on Discord if you have any questions whatsoever. I will be happy to help you. I'll see you guys in the next video, though. Adios.